Greetings and welcome to this week's episode of Vampire the Masquerade Beyond Armageddon. Before we begin, I'd like to make a few announcements. First, we are proud to announce that Sabbat the Schism is officially out now. Not only does it delve into the history and lore of the sect, it opens up multiple role-playing options for fans of the game, including new playable clans, elder level powers, and much more. You can find your own copy of Sabbat the Schism in the link below. Second, I'd like to thank RS Experiments, our local musical talent, for graciously providing the custom music you've been enjoying so far, including our awesome main theme song called Haven Dweller. If you enjoy any of the music used during the stream, and you'd like to hear more, you can find a full library of Mark's work by clicking the link below to RS Experiments' SoundCloud page. Lastly, if you enjoyed tonight's session and you'd like to see more, be sure to follow both our channels. You can catch us live most Sundays at 7 p.m. CET by tuning in to youtube.com/@EriseGames or at twitch.tv/EriseGames. Alternatively, you can enjoy all our recorded sessions on YouTube. Links below. Remember to like, subscribe, and be sure to leave us feedback and suggestions in the comments below. We hope you enjoy the session. And without further ado, let us delve into the world of darkness in tonight's episode of Vampire the Masquerade Beyond Armageddon. We join Jack as he drives through the streets of East LA. The night lights almost blinding at this point, given the recent practice he's had under Viciss's tutelage. As he follows the GPS to a predetermined location, what is going through Jack's mind?
Nothing really much. Probably going over the stupid fucking Discord he had with Serena. That wasn't really called for, but it is what it is.
And as he sort of ruminates on recent events, he turns into a rather, not a wealthy part of East LA, but a wealthier, like above average part of East LA. Which essentially, apart from the really high-end stuff, this just means that it's a place where housing is not mostly composed of derelict buildings repurposed into housing. It's actual lived-in areas. And as he drives past a few addresses, he enters this very small commercial area with a few supermarkets, small shops, and almost out of place, Jack finds this um, seemingly well kept but very out of place jewelry store. Um, he checks the address. This seems to be the place. The building is not that large, but well, it only has one entrance, so perhaps the inside may hold secrets yet.
I'll park the car and walk in.
You exit the car and begin making your way to the jewelry store. You check the front door. You give it a solid push. Doesn't budge. And as you begin to look around for another entrance, you hear a faint click, and trying the door once more, it seems unlocked.
And I'll walk in.
You also look to the side, and you notice that there is a small camera hanging on the ceiling just in front of the front door.
Whoever's on the camera gonna enjoy the really glitchy blob.
You enter the jewelry store, and inside you see plenty of display cases with examples of jewelry. This stuff seems rather expensive, but you have experience delving into businesses like this. You're not an expert by any means, but you've had your shady dealings, and you've owned a few shops in the past, even if for only a fleeting moment. You know that the stuff they have on the display cases is the low end stuff. The really good stuff is usually locked up at the back. And you look around. You pass around the front desk, and you go into the staff only area. You push open the door, and you find that in addition to what you'd expect to see back here, having small corridor leading to an office, and in that office there are a few safes, and then another room which is basically a storage room with really secure safes and security systems. You also see a very almost out of place solid steel door that is slightly ajar. It doesn't seem to have a handle, and it seems to be opened with some sort of electric detector, either fingerprint or something of the sort. And it's currently slightly ajar.
I'll examine if there's like a way to open it. If there's none,
Well, the door is ajar, so you can just pull it open.
So I'll just pull it open then.
Yeah. And looking inside, you see a set of stairs heading downwards into a basement. Immediately as you pull the door open, a few sensations almost hit you. First of all, there is a certain warmth emanating from the basement. The nights in LA right now are rather cold. Not freezing, but rather cold. and the inside of the store was not much better. The basement seems to almost be appropriate for the appropriate temperature for humans to live in there. Almost. It feels almost comfortable. And in addition to that, you smell these odd scents of molten candle wax and a very faint residue of blood.
I'll cautiously proceed.
Mm-hmm. Do you just let go of the door as you go down?
Yeah.
Yeah. As you do, you hear the door very slowly close, and as it shuts, you hear this as the lock engages, and as there is no handle, you seem to be stuck here right now. You descend down the stairs and turn the corner to see what essentially looks like a small makeshift temple to something. There's an altar at the center with a number of candles lit around it, and all around the walls there are several small shelves with a number of occult items. You can make me a int occult to see if you recognize any of them.
Rituals would probably apply, right?
Not in this case. These are just occult relics. Okay. You recognize a few things. Among the creepier items, like skulls, human bones, you also see what look like more innocent things, like small bits of wax wrapped in cloth with a small rope. Things that for anyone else would be the least grotesque part of this. You, however, recognize that these are essentially traditional ways to prepare candles when used in an item called the Hand of Destiny. Which is an item that involves a literal mummified human hand.
From Hangman, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Which is a rare occasion in these days.
You also see a number of smaller items like small bits of charcoal that seem to have been sort of rubbed at the end, so probably used in writing. Chalk as well. You see a few tinder boxes, candles, basically supplies for what you think would be rituals or some religious practice. And among them, you eventually see that on one of the shelves, in sort of a prominent position, is a locked wooden box with engravings that depict what you recognize only as dancing human figures. Given the from this distance is hard to tell, but you'd guess it's skeletons. And in this odd addition to this jewelry shop, in front of the wooden box, examining it silently, you see Picus.
Quite the place you've got.
I try to keep it interesting. I don't have a lot of areas in LA where I'm welcome, if that makes sense.
Well, you're of formidable age, so logically some Cainites would fear you.
And of course, while
We
fear is
can't
a
forget
useful
Tremere.
tool... Hmm?
We can't forget Tremere's either.
Exactly. While fear is a useful tool, you don't get to do impressive things like I have without making a few enemies over the years.
I guess.
Now, Johnny has reported that you've been successfully performing the tasks I've given you.
More or less, I guess.
It only seems that you are lacking one small component to your education.
That being.
Well, something that's going to come up very soon. In the meantime, I'd like to first of all congratulate you on the progress you've made so far.
Thank you.
Not a lot of Cainites would be so eager to shed their human morals for something more appropriate to their nature.
Well, since I am kind of a scholar, humanity is not really about studying. It's about what my clan would best describe as repenting for our sins.
Misguided attempts to cling on to something that has died.
Yeah.
And we're here to shed that, to give you a more useful outlook on life and on death. You'll notice that a lot of the tasks I've given you involve dealing with people in different situations, people who face the risk of death, people who face certain death, people who know they're going to die, people who don't. What can you tell me about the subjects you've interacted with?
Well, that lawyer would probably pay a lot of money or whatever for his skin. But since he was of no use alive, I just extracted the best of it, which was blood.
Yes, but what outlook would you say would benefit him when faced with the certainty of his death?
Don't quite know.
Well, I could tell you, but I'll answer. Well, I'll explain with questions. What do you think would serve him best? To cling on to his fleeting existence? Or to accept that he's going to transition from one state of being to another?
Well, transition would serve him best, but in his mind, probably trying to be alive.
Only brought about by ignorance. You and I both know life does not end without beginning something else.
Yeah.
There's us, there's wraiths beyond, And I'm sure there are plenty of things we have yet to discover. This is what you should be curious about. Ways that your state of being can change through the act of dying. I expect, given the information I managed to get from you, the information I managed to dig up, that you have suffered a number of deaths in your time in this realm. Yes?
World War II wasn't the prettiest place, you know.
Tell me about your time there.
Quite traumatic experience.
The trauma is pointless. Tell me about your
Yes.
time there.
Well, I had a couple of friends way back then. They are not with us anymore. Well, Johnny is kinda in a way with us still. Rather Roy. But most of the time, the fight seems pointless. But you have to do it, otherwise you lose.
Very true. And wars are merely a tool to achieve a goal. But what if that
Yeah.
goal was twofold? Bringing about death can not only get you what you want, but teach you about things that you need. You've seen men die. Tell me about Roy, was it? How did he go?
D-Day, he got blown up. Lost his leg. In a few hours' time, drew his last breath.
Did you look into his eyes when he passed? Do you remember his face?
Yes.
And what can be said about it from your perspective?
Well, he seemed serene when he died, but in the process of dying, it was hard for him. He was hoping he'd have a long fucking life, a bunch of children, something
Which
on
he
the
did
farm.
have.
Eventually, he didn't see any of it.
He didn't need to. Or perhaps he did see it, just not in the way you think. Do you know how I found Johnny in the first place?
Nope.
I myself am not skilled in the art of necromancy. But Auspex does give you a perception of things that often eludes others. I followed a trail, a sense of loss. I followed it, and I found it tied to a small rusted war medal, stuck deep in a few collections of trinkets from generations past. All of it on a yard sale of a young man who knew nothing about his ancestry. That is where I met what remains of Roy. I couldn't talk to him, And even ignoring the fact that a line of communication couldn't be established, just by looking at him, just by sensing him, I could tell he wasn't mentally with us. His will wasted away, something we cannot let ourselves suffer. However, it was not a complete loss of my time, complete waste of my time. Because that young man selling his ancestors' possessions ended up being our dear Johnny. Someone who possessed skills that were useful to me at the time. Someone who will get the point across to what I'm trying to teach you.
That death is not the end.
That death is not even a middle. It's one of the stages. One of the transitions we can make. You've seen it in the past. Your embrace, Cecil's death and his return. Roy's passing, and yet I could still detect him. Roy's memory fading into obscurity and being reborn with Johnny's introduction. The cowardly lawyer who could not allow himself to pass freely. The bikers who, despite facing death every day, facing a demon made of shadows, it sparked no urgency to them. The fear of death was a myth to them. Throughout the events I've exposed you to, you familiarized yourself with multiple perspectives on what death means, on what death entails for an individual. And I believe, and as Micah sort of drifts her eyes and, like, in the middle of the air, you hear a click and the steel door opens, and you hear footsteps coming downstairs. I believe Johnny is here to teach you your final lesson.
I guess so.
Johnny comes down the stairs, putting out a cigarette on the dirt floor and taking another one and lighting it. You called me here, boss? Ah, hey, Jack. So, what am I doing here? Vicus simply looks to you, expectantly.
Just as a player, do I just need to kill Johnny?
You can roll me.
Like, do I get the meaning?
You can roll me int and empathy. Chad.
Yeah.
You get the sense that throughout the entire conversation, what's been highlighted is your exposure to death, to how people face it. The only thing that you haven't done during those tests is look death up close in the eyes. and stay with someone's passing. With Roy, you saw his eyes fade, his life drift away. But for you, that was a moment to let go. Now you know there's something else after.
Well, I guess it was fun while it lasted. I'll walk to Johnny and dig into his neck.
Johnny at first seems to almost go for a hug as you approach. And as soon as you dig your fangs into his neck, it's almost as if his arms tense up and he grips your clothes, almost instinctively pulling you away for just a split second before his strength is it fades away, and he just allows himself to be taken away by this sensation.
Oh, he's not surviving that if I'm feeding fully.
So you're draining him.
Yeah.
Okay. You begin to drink, and with every sip you take, you feel his pulse speed up and then slowly begin to reduce its strength. His heartbeat pulses less often and with less strain. At some point, it's almost as if his heart is finally resting. And as the blood fills your chest, you eventually feel that the artery you bit into is attempting to pulse something and nothing's coming out of it. There is some life still in Johnny, but no matter what is done right now, he's not going to survive.
I just hold his head like, you're gonna be alright.
As you allow his head to rest, his eyes dart around, almost in a panic, looking for answers. And for a few moments, his gaze locks onto yours. Can you roll me a very quick perception empathy, please?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Um, even though his eyes are wide open, you sense that in these last moments, Johnny finds himself in an odd state of inner peace. And as you watch him slowly drift away, you feel Vicus's ice-cold fingers press on your back. And you see their other hand caress Johnny's hair. And you feel a pressure on the back of your head, as if Vicus is attempting to enter your mind.
Yeah.
You allow it?
Hmm.
For a few moments, you see exactly what Johnny's experiencing as he dies. You see your own face holding your body up. You see as the world around you fades into pitch black darkness. And the last thing you can see is this monster looking straight at you, looking peaceful. And just as you think the monster is going to fade with the rest of the world, the almost pale white skin of the creature begins to reflect light almost to a blinding extent. You get this odd tunnel vision with a very strong pin of light at the end. And as you begin to see these odd patterns in the darkness push away to the back of your mind and fade, the light seems to diffuse into your entire existence. And you see absolute nothingness. And that's when Vicus's hand lifts from your back, and you blink a few times, looking down at Johnny's lifeless corpse hanging on your arms.
That was something really new.
Precisely. Life is like war. It's a tool. By no means is it finite. I've seldom seen a war that ends without another one beginning after it. Life is much the same. It serves a purpose, and then it ends, to give way to a new beginning. And as Vicus says this, they reach into Johnny's pocket and retrieve the box of cigarettes that he was using. And as Vicus holds it up and taps the top of it, at first you thought Johnny just gets packs of cigarettes at the store. This pack of cigarettes looks old as hell. It's marked all over with these small markings. It's got a history. And it seems that Johnny has been filling this pack with cigarettes and carrying this pack around. And Vicus just taps the box and says, "Death is not an end. It's simply another step on the ladder." And Vicus puts the pack in your pocket and, presses it in, like your chest pocket. You might want to keep an eye out for him. He might show up. You can learn more from it. And in the meantime, remember the lessons you've learned here.
Neither life nor death is the final step.
There you go. And as you say that, Vicus looks to the door, and you hear a click, and you hear the hinge of the door open. as they turn and walk towards the wooden box. Flicking it open, they take what looks like a well-kept but ancient golden bracelet of origins you can't quite pinpoint. And Vicus takes this bracelet and slips it on, caressing it almost as if reminiscing. Sometimes death only pulls people closer.
I guess.
You may go.
See you around. Oh. Walk up the stairs.
Mm-hmm. And as you climb the stairs and exit the store to go to your car, it's almost like the world around you feels different. Like everything's a bit grayer, but more colorless. For some reason, that does not bother you whatsoever. It almost feels oddly exciting. Like there's so much more you can learn now. And that's where you enter the car and begin making your way back to the Haven. As you do, we join Serena as she rests in her room, hearing a knock at the door.
Am I alone?
Right now, yes.
Yes.
From the other side, you hear the handle open, and as the door swings open, you see on the other side Jasper.
Evening.
Think to the modern life.
It's going. So I came here for another reason.
Of course.
Since the incident with your goal, I have noticed I have become quite dulled in my skills with vicissitude and medicine. You mentioned about giving pointers. Would it be a good time to do so?
I suppose I do have some time. Let us let us go to the lab. We will need to get some resources on the way. Serena looks thoughtful for a second and then says, "We'll grab my less conspicuous car and fix something along the way."
Very well.
Serena grabs a book from the shelves and then heads down the elevator to the car.
Jasper follows surely behind it.
And you both get on the car and begin to leave the building.
So, as we continue driving, at some point, a bit away from the penthouse, on an area not too full of people and quite away. Also, I expect that Serena would have taught Jasper to do the Nosferatu routine.
Mm-hmm. Jasper is very well keeping himself well hidden out of the lights.
No.
Also,
Also, like when traveling, like wearing hoods and stuff, so that.
yeah, I was about to say that also.
Jasper, basically his attire always includes something to cover his face, be it a hoodie, a scarf, and a beanie. Basically, he keeps his face obscured by something.
Time, Serena, so not in a too crowd-filled place, away from cameras and all. Serena stops, looks outside, and says, "Well, we will be needing a subject. I'll wait here. Go fetch something."
Very well. And Jasper, we'll take a look around, see if there's anyone easily accessible to be taken.
So, Serena, where did you stop the car before you requested
So
this?
basically, I'm not going to be somewhere in like the favelas of East LA where there's like life and so on going on. It's going to be, so to say, maybe like an industrial area in between.
Oh. Can you hear us? Hello? Hmm.
Me? Miguel?
Oh, we can hear you now.
Yeah. So it'll be somewhere away from like the favelas and the nightlife of East LA.
Mm-hmm.
Probably maybe like something like an industrial commercial area closer to highways. So at this point of time, there'd probably be like less people. Maybe there'd be homeless. Maybe there'd be some late immigrant workers, or maybe just somebody coming back from late. But it'll be less crowd filled because given his appearance, and that he hasn't yet changed his appearance, at least not to look like the Jaspers that Talmahara was chasing. She doesn't want to go around like flashing around. Oh, hey, Talmahara, look at who I got now.
Fucking twerking his bony ass on the streets.
Yeah, basically not making Jasper twerk his bony ass.
Okay. So, Jasper, you're faced with essentially the streets of East LA's more rundown areas. There's an area that sort of falls, like the earth sort of dips down under one of the bridges where people drive over this small essentially this sewer pipe that almost breaches the surface. And around this area under this bridge, you see a number of essentially structures put together from bits of trash. with one of the residents sitting on what looks like one of those boxes to carry bottles in, flipped over. He seems to be sitting on this box and just messing with a piece of cloth, looking it over and trying to like rub something off of it. Another option you see is off to the side on the other side of the bridge. There's a number of buildings, mostly businesses that are closed down. However, there's an alleyway where you spot a couple of people speaking in very hushed tones and constantly, their eyes constantly darting towards the end of the alleyway. And they seem to swap something between them.
I would like to activate Auspex and go closer to this alleyway to hear what they're speaking about.
Mm-hmm. So you can roll perception alertness. Because you have Auspex, it's basically whatever your regular roll is, but the difficulty is 6 minus your Auspex score.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 successes.
4 successes. So as you listen into this conversation, the taller gentleman in this, hoodie, with both his hands in the hoodie's pockets, he basically says in hushed tones, "Look, man, I can't fucking give you a freebie again, okay? You either pay this time, or you'll just have to go without for a few weeks until you can make the money to pay me." And the other guy, this scrawny, sort of short-looking, you'd say it's a guy who looks like he's in his late 30s, but the voice would indicate that it's closer to someone in their early 20s. He looks very scrawny, very disheveled, and he seems to be fidgeting a lot, saying, "Come on, man, it's been so fucking long. I just need a fix right now. I can pay later. Come on." And this seems to be the exchange they're going through.
I would like to slowly walk through the alley, minding mostly my own business, trying to get close enough to them.
So, as you walk into the alleyway, both of them seem to quiet down, and the guy in the hoodie seems to begin walking towards the exit of the alleyway. At first, the addict tries to not look suspicious towards you, but he also seems to be trying to follow the guy in the hoodie and sort of tugging at his sleeve and silently begging here and there. And the guy in the hoodie is just trying not to make eye contact with you or the junkie and just getting out of the alleyway as fast as possible.
As he seems to be getting away, I say, "Wait, I have business with you."
Roll me
And
charisma expression, please.
more successes, I
Okay.
believe, if it's 6, the difficulty.
Okay. So you say this, and what do you want to do?
I'm just gonna flesh out getting a wallet. Probably I would have a wallet even if there is nothing in it.
Um, the guy at first just says, sorry, I don't know you. As soon as you reach for your wallet, though, the guy seems to look you up and down. And at that moment, the junkie sort of tries to step between the two of you to get his attention. And the guy in the hoodie just, with a very, very brash push, just shoves the junkie away and says, I told you to beat it. You got no money, you got no goods. Got it? Or do I need to teach you a lesson? And he reaches into one of his pockets and pulls out a small square shape, and with a click, you see that a knife pops out. And the junkie, immediately upon seeing the knife, begins to walk away like, sorry, man, sorry. Look, I'll come back with some money, I guess. And he wanders off. Nah.
Jasper just sees this happening. It mostly does nothing. It does try to keep himself composed to the situation. So he takes very much notice of the weapon that he has in his hand now. Going to mostly the opposite side of the weapon right now.
The guy, upon seeing the junkie turn the corner, with one hand, he just closes the knife, pockets it again, and says, now you. What do you want? What are you looking for?
And what goods do you have? As I go
Look,
closer and closer to him.
I got plenty, but I got none of the red, so don't even ask for that.
What about that guy? Don't you feel a little remorse for what you did to him?
Mate, look, it's business. I didn't make his choices for him. He chose to take those fucking drugs. He chose to get addicted. I'm just doing business. Right? Now, if you want some, just tell me what you're looking for. I can tell you if we have it in stock.
I'm looking for very specific, and you seem just to be the type. As I say that, I will
I'll say it again.
use.
We don't have the red. Okay, we're all out. And what do you use?
I will. I will use soul separation on him.
Oh, fuck. Okay, I need to review the rules on this. 1 sec. I'm gonna have to. I don't have a screen for this. Apologies for the immersion breaking for just a second, but I need to hide the DM screen for a moment. Yep, that's not it. There we go. Okay. So, soul separation. Let me see. So you roll manipulation and empathy while I read the details on this. Okay. So he has to roll his willpower. He's quite a strong-willed boy, but not enough, it seems. So you get... Wait, do you get any? Okay, so can you role play your gesture to do this? So you basically say these words, and as he's speaking, what do you do?
I am going to reach out, going towards his neck after I'm able to paralyze him with full separation to just use Vicissitude to cut his nerve system so he's not able to move at all.
Well, first I as as you use soul separation, what do you do to cast soul separation? What's the
I just
gesture?
stare at him
Okay,
and
so you stare at
with
him.
a hand gesture. With a hand gesture, I kind of pull his soul out towards me.
Okay. So as you gesture, the guy simply finishes a sentence and doesn't seem too fazed about it. So yeah, if you're looking for the red, I don't fucking know who can help you, mate, but I certainly can. Okay? Now, are you looking for fucking coke, meth, heroin, weed?
I'll take another step closer to him. And I'm going to some of my blood to start increasing my strength.
Mm-hmm. My god.
As I
This
say,
random fucking minion is rolling really well. Okay. So you approach and you use the blood
then
to
I
bolster your strength.
now ask, what kind of good weed do you have?
Look, man, I'll say it again. And he stops for a second, and he seems to sort of stare at you for a moment. The fuck happened to you? Why do you look like that?
When he says that, will blood pump once again,
Mm-hmm.
strength, and I'll try to get a hold of him using vicissitude to pull out um, his nerves from his spine so he's unable to try to run away.
Mm-hmm. How many dots do you have in vicissitude?
I have four, no,
Four?
three.
Three. Okay.
Three.
So, you're going to use vicissitude 3, specifically the roll for vicissitude 3, bone molding. You can roll
Okay.
that as you sort of, while he's examining your looks and getting a bit of uneasy, you essentially just lunge towards his neck. And let's see the results. That's one success. That's still one success. You're okay. You're good. You're good, baby. You're good. So you reach towards his neck, and essentially you grab his jaw and place your hand on the back of his neck and just squeeze as hard as you can. And it takes a while, and the guy, feeling you restrain his head, essentially just grabs your hand and tries to like wrestle away. And as you squeeze the hand behind his head, you feel the bones on the spine. First, you feel your fingers just sink through his neck, and you hear his muffled screams as you cover his mouth. And then you hear this almost wood creaking sound as you press the spine, and at some point you feel almost as if you just squished a grape in between two blocks of wood. And at that point, the guy just falls flat on the ground.
I'll like grab his body and start to make my way back to Serena, walking through the shadows, staying away from the lights so no one stares too much that I'm carrying a body.
Mm-hmm. Just roll very quick. Since you're trying to just use the light to your advantage and mostly trying to keep away from populated areas, we'll say it's wits and stealth, okay?
Mm-hmm.
With your buffed strength, you can carry the guy just fine. Okay. So you avoid the most of the areas, and you wait for, essentially looking around the corner, you wait for the homeless man under the bridge to essentially, look away, and while he's looking away, you make your way to the car. And yeah, you reach the car. Serena, you basically see Jasper just outside the car carrying this pretty hefty, tall guy. Also, folks, sorry about the technical difficulties. I will attempt to fix this ASAP. You guys can keep roleplaying.
So, is this enough, Serena?
As Jasper approaches the car, she pops over the trunk so that he can put the body inside the car.
Jasper carefully puts down the body to not get damaged inside of the trunk and closes as he steps back into the car.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I didn't take too long, Serena.
No? Kind of person did you choose?
Scum of the earth kind of person.
Why did you choose him? Serena basically starts a car and starts driving as Jasper said. Why did you choose him?
Oh. He is someone that, if disappeared, will probably not be missed. And it would be better for everyone he's not on the streets.
When Jasper first says that nobody would care if he disappeared, Serena does a little smirk, but when he says it's better for everyone else if he's missing, the smirk quickly disappears.
Jasper takes note of that but says nothing. Now, where will we go? Sorry.
We'll be going to the lab. It's good for you to know where it is. No. They drive for a bit, very short while, not too long, and finally pull up in front of something that looks like a closed up butcher shop. Serena opens the door. Serena pulls into the into the garage of the butcher shop after opening it with a set of keys, and locks the door afterwards.
All right. Jasper, as you essentially go into this butcher shop, as you hear Serena lock the door behind you, you see this. God, so many issues to deal with. Oh God. Serena, can you turn off your camera? Sorry, Tony just rejoined. Technical difficulties. Okay, we're good. So, Jasper, as you enter the butcher shop, the only sensation that really overwhelms you is the stale air in this building. That faintly smells like very, very rotten, old, dried blood. Like residues of it. But only faintly. Mostly it's stale. Like not a living soul has stepped in here forever.
It is quite discreet, this lab of yours.
Was a backup haven. But we have already used it, so we don't no longer use it as a haven. Since during the time when we used it, our enemies who were tracking us through means of race could have located it. So it's more useful as a location, which we use currently. As a penthouse in an apartment building is not too welcoming. Right. Take your victim. Take your not victim. Take your test subject. You still need to experiment upon the with. Need to experiment a bit, and perhaps there is something you can learn about the curse you have, the new curse you have, your blood has developed in the Shadowlands. I have a book with me, and it is regarding different diseases of human skin. Leprosy.
Jasper is hanging on that. He opens the trunk, grabbing the guy, seeing if he's still awake.
Yeah, by the way, Serena, once you pick up the guy, Serena starts moving downstairs, and you realize that it is not this floor of the butcher shop that's going to be used. You go down a couple, like one flight, into something what seemed to be before, perhaps maybe like an underground, like a fridge in a cellar. There is a metal table there, which is quite, which is a bit rusty, and or perhaps it's not rust, but even dried stains of blood. You wouldn't know. Right, so from what little I know about similar curses, given that I've had some experiences with Nosferatu, there are things you can do about your appearance within its limits. So, Jay, I'd like you to experiment with the flesh upon your test subject, trying to make it look reminiscent perhaps of leprosy or syphilis. Now, while for humans none of these diseases would be something of high social value, but perhaps some of these things will be close enough to looking dead for you. Another thing which you can experiment today on is fat grafting. Now, you have also been interested in the way I have built my legs. So perhaps some of these sketches would be of an interest to work with biomechanics of the human body. Now, I'd like you to spend some time on all of these, but you have only one test subject. And test subject can expire. If it expires, you will have to go and get a new one. But I'd like to see how you will approach the free, separate task, attempting to graft some of the fat upon yourself, uh, as well as experiments with skin textures, and work on some of the biomechanics without the test subject expiring, but also making it choosing the most efficient approach for this.
Very well, I'll try to do so. As he puts his test subject on the
And
metal
Serena
table.
also drops a book which details different skin diseases um, of that humans can have, which could potentially, work as a disguise, as well as now, Jasper, you have never really seen it, but what you see are illustrations of humans if their skeletons were built like those of horses or those of birds. Or, for example, those of. And as you scroll through those, you even see some as if, like, if a human skeleton was built like a tortoise's, like dolphins, like a dog's, and so on.
You would notice as Jasper is reading, he casually takes what appears to be a small notebook from his clothing, and he opens it up and takes some notes from yours and adds to his own as he is studying
Wait,
your.
wait, wait. Does Jasper take the illustrations of human bodies as of humans if their skeletons were built like animals?
He's taking notes.
He is
Okay.
taking notes of multiple things,
This
different
should
things.
be
Some
this should be a huge red flag for anyone on humanity.
No. But I'm more interested in, is he taking notes of those illustrations? Because
Yes,
I
that's what he said. So
he does. He finds it interesting.
Serena
So
says you can
you do notice
Serena
him
Serena
looking
Serena says you can take those. I printed them off the internet.
the internet. And Jasper kind of takes a look at Serena with a worried expression as he said, as humans begin to experiment on themselves with animal genes?
Oh, no, that is actually the artwork of some Japanese artist. Japanese have changed since the World War II.
I see. Are they not ruthless as they once were?
Serena looks at him. I wouldn't know, but they're more known for other things now.
I see. And as he is speaking, he looks back on the book and begins to take notes of some specific, now more specific stuff. And would Serena look at his notebook?
She probably does.
Serena would notice that he seems to be taking very specific traits about animals and seems to be adding to the making ways to add into a human body without changing the human body, though.
In fact, Serena, if you would
Yeah.
kindly roll into medicine,
Uh-huh.
this is relating to veterinarian medicine, so apply whatever
Uh,
specialties would apply for veterinarian medicine
Book
specifically.
smarts, book smarts, book
If
smarts.
you've researched it, I think you would have
Uh,
to some extent, but not on this topic specifically. But I'll leave it up to your own.
Biomechanics.
Yes. Well, this would be more. I'll allow it for now.
I mean, I did have to research
I know you had to do some
animal
research
stuff
for your
for
legs,
the
but it's different.
and the Schlachter.
Yeah. Yeah, for the Schlachter, I'll say yes. For one specific modification that you made.
1,
Jesus fucking Christ, that's
2,
3 10s.
8, 7 successes.
Okay, so essentially, as you look at Jasper's notes, it's notes about a diverse cast of animals, but the most notable one seems to be a small hand-drawn sketch of essentially a side view, like a side X-ray view of a cat's skull and the brain with a number of notes pointing to it. And the page specifically regarding this drawing seems to be heavily scribbled. Like, there is more graphite on this paper than there is white paper. That's how scribbled on this is.
Your notes seem to be heavily geared towards animals. Have you not worked with test subjects that are more suitable for our needs?
Well, of course. Humans, well, they're flawed. They're not perfect. And we could take some inspiration from, well, the animal kingdom. I believe you kind of take notice to my small research on feline anatomy. And what I was thinking of doing was perhaps making a way to recreate the cerebellum of felines to give humans quicker reflexes and more well balanced. That wouldn't change too much of their physiology, but it would be a great, well, upgrade for human, for us in itself.
I suppose you should take note into the research of recent findings on evolution?
Oh, I have. I just haven't had the time to take notes of everything. There's quite some peculiar things. One, for example, is fascinating to have found that crocodiles seem to have the genetic makeshift to never die of old age. They just increase their growth over time. Something truly fascinating. I wonder if it would be possible to change it into other animals or even humans themselves.
Well, that would be genetics. And for that, you would need to find a way to work on much smaller scale.
Yes, that's why I wanted to talk to you. I know Vicissitude allows us to change the body, but what is our limit? How much we can change with it? I
Well,
myself I'm not a master of it, but you seem to be more knowledgeable about it. You believe it would be possible to change one's genetics with vicissitude?
well, certainly is possible, but from what I've learned, um, vicissitude, ironically, perhaps just like dementation, is a discipline that has little of has had little outside development beyond what the powers of blood directly give you. Which means even smalls. We have recently have discovered some more elder variety power of ways of mixing certain powers to affect the body on a much smaller scale by joining it with auspex, which means that there are perhaps a limitless way of working with it as long as you continue mastering your skills in vicissitude and experimenting with those. Now, I would demonstrate to you because if as simple as a merging of aspects and vicissitude, which is a traditional it's a combo, is a massive advancement. All I can say is perhaps that only the elders start truly experimenting, but it is not something you just have to think outside the box. Now, if your test subject wasn't needed for your experiments now, I would
Oh,
demonstrate
ah,
to you a way of affecting a body with vicissitude without touching it that I've developed. But you still need the test subject. I do see that you have done something. Is the body still viable? Will it last?
You
I'll try.
can roll perception medicine, Serena.
Mm. Does discerning apply? Miguel?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 successes.
So from the way he modified it, while the guy is still able to incur shallow breathing, um, unless the modification is undone, he's never going to move again. So he's definitely like this is a death sentence for him.
No,
If there was
my
permanent damage to the spine, so if the modification was undone, there might be a chance for him to walk again and move again. That said, if he damaged the spine, itself? Like the
My
spinal
concern is
column?
more that my concern is more than what he did to him. Because usually Serena takes her subjects, and doesn't modify them before because she wants them to be at their full health, so to say,
So
before she starts.
basically looking at the body, you can see two essentially pushed in marks at the base of the neck. And just feeling it with your fingers, you can tell that essentially the spine was squished, and it's essentially choking um, the spinal nerve. Um, you don't know if it's severed it or if it's just choking it. If it's choking, you'd need to fix it pretty fucking quick to even give him a chance at, regaining mobility. If it's severed, it would require some really, 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 really good usage of Vicissitude to even fix it, and even then, there might be some permanent damage left over.
Again, that is not what I'm asking about, is it?
That's what he did. I don't know what else to tell you.
No, my question is, I want
Is he
him to
healthy?
experiment on the skin. Get
Otherwise,
some
he's
fat,
healthy.
Okay, cool. Serena looks at the modification. Well, this doesn't seem to harm the test subject, but for future references, especially if you're going to be, for example, let's say, developing something akin to my legs, right? In order to build something like that for yourself, bring them in unharmed. Take a bit of blood if you must. That will knock them out. As it's far better for the test subjects to be untouched before you start working. Because let's say if you wanted to, and she, like, looks the subject with a very detached, feel like moving his face, checking like his, like the body, build, like fat, muscles, etc. And he does it not with it's not like somebody looking at the slab of meat, but it's not far off. Because how can you know whether your build is good unless the test subject can test it out? Before I built these legs, there were a few failed attempts because some modifications were too weak and would break upon a severe hit. And for that, you need a moving target. But for today's test tests, this will do. She looks Jasper right in the eye. But if I had another task for you, you would have to go and fetch a new one.
Very well. The next one will be more well taken care of.
Yes. Old, feeble bodies, too young and undeveloped. Young bones are too weak, as are old. Best to take strong targets. A sip of our blood ensures that they survive, and after 3 nights, well, you know the drill.
Of course.
Right then. You should start. Decide on which experiment would you like to do first.
Jasper looks at his test subjects. and goes to his face and says, "Would you mind passing me the book on the page about leprosy and, well, other sorts of skin disease? Please, sorry."
Serena looks to.
Just real quick, Jasper, as you essentially approach the guy's face, I was gonna do this at the end, but I think this is appropriate. This small moment. I needed to roll consciousness. Conscience. Sorry, I needed to roll conscience. As you basically approach the guy's face, and you notice that despite not moving much, you do see tears streaming down his face, as his jaw is basically agape, and his eyes basically dart between you and other ways to get out, as if he is silently basically screaming for help. So yeah, you see his reaction, and you can't really be bothered to care much. You can bring yourself to care. It's almost like you're a bit numb to his pain, and so his pleas essentially go unanswered. Serena, you notice this, and Jasper obviously either lose 1 humanity or 1 point in either conscience or self-control. Your choice.
Okay, I would say I'll lose a point in humanity.
Leaves the book on the next to the test subject, and goes into the corner of the room, silently observing.
Jasper, feeling very displeased that he feels bad about this.
Wait,
Asshole of a human.
Jasper doesn't feel bad about it though.
No, he almost
Jasper-
feeling bad.
Yeah, Jasper cannot bring himself to feel bad. That's the thing. He feels numb to it, almost. He wants to feel bad, but he can't really give a shit right now. He can bring himself to. How he reacts to that feeling, that's entirely up to him. Maybe he justifies it, maybe whatever, but the beast still takes a bit of you away. That's essentially what happens.
Yes, he feeling weird that he feels so cold right now, but not paying attention, wanting to learn more about his abilities, begins to work on his face, trying to give him a diseased look to his face, changing it meticulously, precisely, following multiple different imageries from the book. Could not make it equal to any of the pictures of the book, but make it somewhat similar to it. He works silently and he keeps a very well concentration to it, almost forgetting that Serena was even in the room as he finishes his work, looking at it and looking at Serena and what do you think so far? And probably need to roll, right? See how well I did it.
This is for
Making skin look as if it has leprosy, so that he can
Probably
basically.
so specifically
level one
imitating what's in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically like so to say like craft work with vicissitude.
Yeah. So
Fine dexterity work.
I'll give you 2 options. Technically, this isn't by the rules, This is just a way I would do it in this specific case. So, not by the book. I'll give you two options. You can either have the default roll for Vicissitude, or you can choose to replace your dex in this roll, like your dex medicine. You can replace it with wits medicine, as you're essentially trying to replicate something on this body.
Well, it would be an intelligence medicine, but yeah, it can be wits.
It's wits because you're essentially like looking back and forth and taking this example and putting it on this subject. It's not, do I know how to do this? It's, can I replicate that? Can I replicate what I'm seeing right now?
Oof. Yeah, that was 0 successes, unfortunately. So Jasper would once again work on it,
So
trying
essentially,
to redo the.
you attempt to imitate it as best you can. You sort of do the thing that artists do when they don't have a lot of practice, where they just turn the background into just a big fucking smudged image instead of actually painting it. You basically have this face that has all the right aspects on the right places, but none of them are defined enough to look like what you want it to look. So it just looks like you just went up to the face and did this on the skin.
So yeah, Jasper will once again work on it, trying to redo, feeling a little bit angry that he has lost so much of his practice. And I'm just going to re-roll it again.
Mm-hmm. For consecutive rolls, I usually up the difficulty a bit. That's not an issue right now, but just so you're aware. Okay, so
My rolls are bad.
you the second time around you actually manage to achieve what you wanted to achieve. It's not perfect. The fuck up you did before still shines a bit through, but the parts you worked on now look good. They look like the picture. They're convincing. They're believable. If you hadn't made the previous mistake, this would be fine.
Okay. What do you think, Serena? He says, clearly looking displeased with his work, but still asking for an opinion.
We managed to. If it wasn't for your initial mess up, it would have turned out fine. I suppose it is good enough that you can experiment on that after you graft some fat to your face. Now, what will be your next experiment?
Obviously, would be rafting with fat on me, but he looks around. Is there any mirrors in this place?
None whatsoever, and the tile below your feet is so fucking gross, it does not reflect a single thing.
There
It is
probably
caked
would
in
have
grime.
been. There probably would have been like a mirror in the, in like an employee bathroom.
Not an intact one at this point. The place was abandoned for a very long time. You can find mirror shards that, if you're willing to risk cutting your fingers cleaning it up.
Serena delves into her bag and pulls out a makeup mirror. You can use this.
Well, thank you, Serena. Says, and he grabs your makeup mirror and looks at the guy once again, and he says, "Is he like is he like fat, healthy person?"
He seems mostly well fit. That's the word I'd use. It's not like he's uh super jacked. It's not like he has the physicality of someone who goes to gym every day. But he has the physicality of someone who does cardio on a regular basis and isn't skipping any meals. He's not starving.
Very well then. Then Jasper would move to the place where it's easiest to find fat, which would be the abdomen. He would start removing his up close so he can have easy access to the guy's abdomen.
Mm-hmm.
And he would feel his way around his abdomen to try to find the locations of fat spots in his body.
You end up finding fat pockets where you would expect them to be. It's basically right above the belt line.
So he would start digging into it, opening up a little hole so he can grab in.
It takes almost no skill to do this, the actual poking in and retrieving the material. Though, Serena, you do notice that while Jasper works, it's almost like he gets these mental blinders on. He is very focused on what he's doing, completely ignoring the person themselves. Though you, Serena, can see that the eyes of the guy just are wide open and just streaming tears.
Okay. I'll continue letting Jasper learn. Empirical research. aka passive metamorphosis is fuck around and find out.
And so he would slowly grab pieces of fat and start slowly absorbing into his face to see if he could make himself look more alive and less, well, skeletal in nature.
Mm-hmm. So I won't have you.
By the way, as he does that, I make a note to him. Now, that, now for that to stick, given that what you have, appearance-wise, is a supernatural curse, try to apply your learned skills on flesh molding upon your face. After you add the fat, basically, you add some, but you take away some. That way, you can basically still keep your stunning looks, while perhaps being able to avoid the most glaring breaches of the silence of blood.
Very well.
So
Okay,
as
so
you say this, Serena, and as Jasper begins to sort of graft the fat onto his face, at first, Jasper, once you finish grafting some and you just let go and examine it on the mirror, at first it looks okay, and then you start to see rapidly growing black spots on your skin just spreading out. And it's almost like you begin to sweat this pitch black rotting fat out of your skin, and it sloshes off and falls to the ground as your cheeks return to this skeletal figure.
Jasper grasps your mirror, almost to the point where it looks like he might break the mirror out of anger, but let's go.
Well,
And he seems to look up for a second as he tries to calm himself down.
well, you've learned something, didn't you?
That I cannot change my appearance,
Well,
apparently.
perhaps a way. But it would require quite a lot of time experimenting on a shovel head of some kind. Um, Basically, there is a way one can make another Cainite into one's skin.
Like a skin suit over my face.
Yes, well, it will have to be bigger than just your face. Unless you'd be able to reduce the shovelhead's size quite drastically. Because
Perhaps
you'll still have to keep the blood vessels and a way for it to basically be fed on your blood. Mm. But yes, it is possible to make such a suit. Of course, a human will not do. They're they're unlikely to survive this, but making a flesh suit out of a fledgling, caitiff, um, there's a lot to experiment with. And quite a few other potentials that you can discover if you choose to go that path. Otherwise, you'd have to. Otherwise, perhaps what you could do is change the cartilage structure of your face. If live matter is the thing that degenerates, rots away like fat, muscle, well, cartilage, well, you can't apply bone everywhere where you're missing some volume. But cartilage is softer and perhaps could be used.
you would notice as you said about start talking about a flash suit for him that he seems somewhat opposed but didn't say anything. As you moved along to talking about adding cartilage and bone, he seems to be more inclined to that idea.
And Serena notices that she looks to him. Jasper,
Yes.
if you concern yourselves with fates of those who are below achieving transformation, those who are happy enough to run around in their limited mindsets in the Garden of Eden as Adam and Eve before they've eaten from the tree of knowledge. You'll never achieve the things you wish to learn about. Transcendence above the flesh and form starts from within. None of the modern human achievements were achieved because the scientists felt pity for the rabbits or the rats. This
Jasper
power,
first.
and Serena just like looks at her hands and at her feet and swish, like wrapping her tail around her hand, and like, this power is a tool for us to be able to survive the Gehenna. A way to transcend beyond the limitations of our curse and our limitations. While you're
It is
busy thinking about the fate of a Caitifer shovelhead that would not last even 2 months in the world of darkness, you could be learning more about how even those whose ultimate destiny is to perish and become a pile of ash, how even those can aid the sword in transcending our limitations and surviving the Gehenna.
Jasper looks thoughtful as you say that. Looks down on the
And
ring.
as someone who was embraced into the sword, unlike me, of the Malkavian clan, who learned this as she defected from the Camarilla, it's... Don't you think you're lagging behind? I would have assumed that perhaps your 70 years in Shadowlands would have opened your mind to the fact that there is more to life than just mortal variety of morality. You
I
cannot.
thank you for
You should.
your wise words, Serena, but if anything, if you wish to know, I learned in 70 years in the Shiplands is that one must adapt.
Can you
I shall
repeat that?
adapt.
Sorry.
I
Can you?
thank you for your kind words of wisdom, and I must agree with you on some part. On those 70 years in the Shadowlands, if there is one thing I learned is that to survive is to adapt, and to adapt is to change.
And you understand that metamorphosis and change is necessary. I suppose you'll only need to learn more in order to finish walking the path that you've already started on.
Perhaps, Jasper says, almost in a questionable tone. He's still unsure about it. Perhaps I'll have to ponder upon it. He says as he moves towards the man's legs, almost analyzing it and then kind of looking down his own. Not yet. Says as he moves back towards almost the last day, the last lesson that you wish for me to try.
You were wondering upon the biomechanics of my legs. So, experiment with those. But you'd have to probably after that fix up his bodily functions. Either way, it's probably going to take a while, so I will leave you to it. Make sure let me know when you're done, and I can see how it goes. Either way, try and find a way to experiment with your face on how to change it. Because you do have to change it. You still look like Jasper. and Tomahara will know once we present you. Since they're in this town, in the sword as well. And we can't. And we don't have any way of ousting them at the moment. So, you're going to have to change your face. And since you'll be doing that anyway, combine useful research with something useful for our pack. So that you're not picked off.
Very well.
Do you have ways of, do you know where the haven is from here?
I believe I remember the play correctly.
Right.
Says with a smile.
There is a way from the sewers to go into the haven. By the way, is Virgil alive? Miguel.
Virgil currently is alive, I think. Yes,
Okay.
he is. Yes.
She basically gives Jasper Virgil's number. My Schlachter Virgil will come here when you need to return and direct you on how to go to the haven through the sewers, given your current
Yes.
appearance. Make sure
Yes.
that when you're done here, even if it's left in the process, that your test subject does not have a way to escape. And make sure that from the outside, let nobody come in.
As you're saying that, you see as Jasper very meticulously flips him over and start taking off his clothes and begin to disconnect his bones from his shoulder and his legs, so he's unable to walk or move other than his head and mouth. And you see him going to work on his neck once again to try to.
By the way, Miguel, he hasn't fed the poor guy any blood.
No, he has not.
How's the guy doing?
So, Jasper, you want to do the modification on the spine?
Yes.
Okay.
But he said he did something to the legs first.
Yeah, to immobilize him. So Jasper, I need you to roll me the strength and medicine roll for the bones. This one's gonna be at +1 difficulty. Because you're undoing something that's quite hard to undo without risk. And you still managed, I think.
Yes.
So after, as you begin pulling the bone apart, you hear this sound that you heard before, the almost wood creaking sound as you stretch the bone out. And as you essentially cause the pressure on the spine to sort of relieve, the men almost he almost curls onto himself, just screaming at the top of his lungs and clutching at his own body.
Jasper would say, there now. I need you to still be quiet. Unless you want me to silence you once again.
The man does not stop screaming, as he essentially seems to sort of be in this mix of shock and panic. And he begins trying to essentially crawl away from you, frantically, his limbs shaking. He basically tries to, like, drag himself as best he can towards the exit, with very little
He's a-
success.
Do keep him quiet.
I'll do. And as Jasper, really, without hurting his body, puts his weight with one foot on him and slowly goes down towards his shoulder to also pull out the bone out of place so he's unable to move an arm and then the other.
Yeah, the modifications are accompanied by screams of agony, essentially.
Serena sighs and walks over to the guy, and I'm going to basically separate. Like, I want to make it so that he can't scream.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's basically so Jasper, you basically I'm not gonna have you roll Serena because you've done stuff like this before, so you know how.
Yeah.
And story reasons, I'm not gonna impede you with it. Essentially, Jasper, you see Serena grab the guy by the head, basically lifting his head up forcefully, and with her other hand, with her thumb, she just presses here, and as she pulls down, the scream sort of, it's almost like his voice cracks slightly, as if he just gulped air at the same time as he was trying to scream, and then the screaming turns into just
That's better.
And
Screams are
Jasper
not.
will
Screams are not. Good for research.
pick him up and put him back in the table once again.
Yep. The man does his best to fight you the whole way, but it's not like he can do anything.
And he would begin working on the guy's leg, try to replicate from Serena's notes and sketches, her legs that she did. See what he can do to change to make it better in his own way.
Mm-hmm. As you do so, to experiment.
In the meanwhile, Serena leaves, but before she leaves, she says, "Mind you, of course, should this test subject expire, get a new one." And then she leaves.
And as Serena leaves, leaving Jasper to experiment on his own. Jasper, your test subject attempts to struggle but fails every time he tries. Given your recent humanity-related developments, it's not that you don't know he's in agony. It's more that you can't. You almost feel bad that you're more annoyed at the fact that he keeps moving and interrupting you rather than feeling bad for the situation he's going through. And as you try to do your research, at some point, you hear buzzing somewhere in the room. And your attention turns to the guy's belongings, which you sort of just tossed on in a pile.
I do remember his voice, so as I'm going to grab his phone, I'm going to try to change my voice to be like his.
Okay. You can roll.
Malka Frey.
Sorry about that. Apologies for the Geru invasion. Yes, as you you can roll manipulation performance. As you take the phone, you look at the caller ID, and it's just it's just registered as Nana. And you take the call. Oh boy. You take the call, and as you bring it
I'm
up
not going
to...
to. Well, I'm going to test my voice first.
Oh, okay. You cannot do an impression of this guy at all.
So I'm just gonna change back to my old voice anyway and pretend that I'm his friend.
Yeah, so you take the phone call, and as soon as you answer, you hear an old woman's voice speaking in Spanish with a very concerned tone of voice. Now, you don't speak Spanish, from what I remember from your character sheet, so you don't know what she's saying. But from the tone of voice, she seems concerned, and she seems to be constantly asking questions. Do you say anything?
No. Instead, I just turn off the phone.
Okay. You turn off the phone, and as you reflect on what just happened, we will take a short break. We will return between 10 and 15 minutes, as we will join either Jasper or Serena, depending on events discussed in the background. We will see you soon. Welcome back. We join Serena as she arrives once more to the haven. Opening or closing the haven door behind her, she looks around to notice that most of her coterie, or most of her packmates, are out. She hears some movement, and walking to the second floor, next to one of the bookshelves where both Jack and Serena keep their tomes and grimoires, is Cecil, sitting on the couch and staring almost blankly at a book that seems to have like a leather-bound cover. Very plain, no title. And fresh, pale white pages. And he just seems to be staring at it very intently.
Anything interesting?
Cecil seems to be almost too focused to have heard you. You notice his eyes like darting around the page, almost frantically.
Is everything okay?
Ah, yes. I've been trying to get a hold of my own thoughts.
Your own thoughts?
Thoughts.
Thoughts.
Since I came back, it's slowly been getting more and more difficult to shut out certain influences. I do have to complete the purpose for why I was brought back, but it's his mind and his will are so expensive. I can't. It's hard to focus.
Sounds to me like it's almost like the Malkavian Madness Network.
Perhaps this is more. I've been seeing these patterns, designs of sorts. I believe it's constructs I'm supposed to make. I'll need plenty of material. And as he says this, he sort of moves forward and lays the book open on the table. And Serena notices that it's essentially a notepad with no notes in it. It's just blank pages. I've been seeing designs, almost biological schematics. They're gargantuous.
What?
Bigger. Something like arteries expanding over a city. Only it's not. It's hard to explain.
I see. Sounds like a big building project.
I get the sense it's supposed to be a place of propagation, maybe reflection. I'm not entirely sure. I will need a large number of subjects for it. And a place to do it. Away from prying eyes.
Suppose we can figure something out.
We'll need to.
Well, none of the old havens will work for it. But we can. But there was this mansion that the Gangrel Archon and her cronies used before they blew it up.
I remember.
I suppose it's still probably just as destroyed. And aside for a few booby traps, which might have not went off, it would be quite useful.
If I am getting as many subjects as I believe I'll need, I'll have enough to spare to clear any booby traps. It's then just a matter of constructing this amalgam.
Jasper has been practicing. I've been guiding him towards a more enlightened view on existence.
I'm aware. I sensed his... I sensed our influence on him.
He's
Soon enough he'll
ambitious.
join us.
He's ambitious. just needs to have a bit more of a clear-headed view of what's what and who's who.
I'm sure
But
we'll guide him.
apparently, yes. But apparently, if you puts some fat into his face, it'll just melt out of his body.
Thankfully, he serves the pack in multiple ways. Not only is he an apt student, according to your report, I also know that you would all be in quite a bit of danger around me if it wasn't for him.
Is it because of your newfound potency of blood?
It's something slightly different than simply desiring diablerie. I've been trying to sate my hunger with mortals, and it barely works. They just don't. They're not enough. I then tried diablerie. The few times I did, it also didn't work. Until I tasted the blood of our clan.
I see.
I think
So
this
Jasper
is what...
can embrace. So Jasper can embrace mortals for you.
I believe he'll have to. And I also believe this is what we're meant to combat. The reason why he can't be known yet. His needs are apocalyptic. We need to find a way around it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of and as he speaks, Cecil's attention drifts as if he's noticing something in the air and listening for something.
Does it look like he's looking out for someone?
It looks like he's trying to search, or at least pay attention to something. Maybe find something,
right.
or maybe listen to something.
Right. I'm gonna go straight to horrid form. I'm gonna go straight to horrid form. I'm quicker and faster in horrid form.
You okay? You brace your arms on the floor, and with cracking noises and your limbs extending, you adopt this alien savage shape. Basically,
And start also basically bracing for an attack like last time.
And as you prepare, Cecil's eyes dart through the air, and he very slowly raises his hand up to his ear and seems to tilt his head and says, I see. 150. 150. We'll need 150. And he seems to drift off, and then he sort of catches himself and notices you and says, "Calm yourself. What's wrong?"
Serena tries to speak, but she's in horrid form.
Yeah, essentially just these hisses and growls.
Clicks and
Yeah.
clicks.
Cecil basically reaches forward and placing his hand on this huge creature's neck, just rests his forehead on yours and seems to sort of like pat the side of your neck, trying to soothe you.
I start transforming back.
Yep. And as you return to your normal size, Cecil slowly pulls you back and just holds you close and says, "I understand. It's not the same. It won't happen again. I'm not
So
going
quick.
anywhere.
It was so quick.
I'm not going anywhere."
Serena takes a deep, breath in and leans back into the embrace, holding onto his hands very tightly.
Cecil just maintains the hug. But I mean, if he was to hold any tighter, he'd probably sink his hands into you. So he just continues holding you tightly and waiting for you to, relax. And as he senses the tension on your shoulders begin to, relax, he pulls away slightly and checks if you're doing all right.
This is a bit shaken because it looked exactly as of that time, and it's gonna take some time getting used to the fact that he can drift off and just basically have a conversation with the eldest. But eventually she says, "I'm alright, it'll just take some time getting used to the fact that not every time you look like that is because there's somebody stalking us."
If it soothes this fear, know that I've been equipped with I believe you'd call it countermeasures for that type of situation. I'd be able to not only make my way back, but I'd be able to fight them from here, should I sense them.
Slowly nods.
Roll a perception empathy.
Body language applies.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 successes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just continue the scene. You notice nothing off.
Eh.
It won't happen again. I can assure you. Fool me once.
After you... Shane looks away. After you died, and then back to Cecil. Vika sent his mage to cut off the influence of Delmont. That's how they tracked you. It was my fault. They tracked you through me.
It wasn't your fault. If you hadn't made that pact, I would probably have gone into Vicissitude long before I could be ambushed. The reason why I was ambushed in the first place was because you made me a danger to them.
Serena just looks at him like with a bit like confusion. You said you were already considered a danger before.
Yes. Incapacitated, however, I was less so. You found a way to turn back the clock on Mariposa's diablerie.
Well, turns out whoever did it was one of them.
But if you hadn't made that deal, I wouldn't have been fit to do anything. I would have been a burden to the sword. You made me a danger again. Do you understand?
Serena, I was slowly nods because essentially, if she hadn't been impulsive as Mariposa, it wouldn't have happened in the first place. So,
Let me roll something. Oh. Okay. Okay. Cecil seems to examine your facial expressions for a moment. And he simply holds your cheek and makes eye contact with you and says, "We will get them. We will slaughter them all. And once they're gone, we can reshape this world into what it should be."
Iris tracks a very unsure smile and then says, maybe first a small vacation.
Cecil, quite uncharacteristically, leans in, gives you a very brief kiss, and then says, "Of course."
When he does that, Serena reaches out for another kiss.
Yep, he reciprocates. And after a few moments, He straightens his back and says, there are things we shouldn't have ignored up until the ambush. But we cannot indulge. There's work to be done.
I mean, Serena gives him a small smile. I mean, I definitely wouldn't like somebody interrupting vacation time. After all, good rest from all the battles is needed for good research work. Mental recuperation is also needed, and we have been going at it nonstop for a while.
We will have to go non-stop until it's done. Afterwards, we can rest.
No rest was wicked, huh?
And we are wicked.
Serena looks at him. Debatable. Morality is the legacy of those who hide behind it.
Cecil looks towards you, and under his eyelids, a second pair of eyelids just winks at you vertically.
After all, like I said, the sword is doing a public service, essentially. Like, you know, the humans have trashmen who take out the trash, and nobody seems to appreciate the vital job that the infrastructures are doing. I wasn't kidding.
Are you comparing us
To biohazard
trashmen?
removal? No, I'm comparing us to biohazard removers. It can be.
Not a viewpoint that will result in a lot of successful recruitments. Maybe
Well, that's why.
rephrase it.
Well, that's why we gentrify that. That's why you gentrify that. For those who fail to see the importance of such tasks.
Regardless, the amalgam. We need to create the amalgam. 150 bodies.
Mm-hmm. Should I use the
Yes.
Of course.
We cannot have the disappearances locally.
Of course. Any specific requirements? Age? Strength? I mean, if they're able-bodied, I could justify it as I need cheap immigrants.
Adult size, enough muscle and bone.
Mhm.
No need for
Right.
bodybuilders or
Yes,
anything
basically.
like that, but 150 regular average people.
Of course. I'll organize that.
Once a construct is made, the amalgam will... I'm not sure what it will do, but I have this sense of urgency. Like it'll be important.
Well, us Malkavians have a tale about how the curse of Malkav was shared through the entirety of the bloodline, equally distributed. Although, I wonder how the distribution worked when some of us became lost dementation. I wouldn't know, because I believe only the Sabbat Malkavians preserved their dementation. How were the Sabbat Malkavians before The 2000s?
From our experience in the counties, it doesn't seem like that's exclusive. But it sure is a trend. Sanity has always been your clan's domain, though, so it's to be expected that methods may vary.
Claim that,
Can you repeat that last statement, please?
yeah, our clan claims that through whatever was done, it distributes the weight of Malkov's curse among the whole clan equally. That's what the network is. And what you're describing is also a sort of network. Perhaps it's a way to distribute the curse?
I'm not sure.
Alleviate
It
in a
doesn't
sense.
feel like a network. It feels more like the strings of a puppeteer. I'm able to pluck a string and every connected point in that string obeys. I can tug at my former self, and with just a thought I can... And as he closes his eyes and focuses, you sort of begin to feel your arm raise, not of your own volition. And then he opens his eyes and your arm, is basically released. It's not a mental connection. The flesh responds.
Well, the old tales claim that one night after the Convention of Thorns, half of the Malkavians just stood up and went away and lost their access to dominate. A different thing, but similar.
Something to be explored, no doubt.
It's funny. Wouldn't that make the Dimids and the Malkavian clan essentially two hive minds?
In very, very different ways. And who knows, maybe other clans have the same potential. Who knows how far the Las Sombras shadows really stretch. Jack did manage to communicate to an entire bloodline.
Yes. Apparently somebody also reacted to it, right in the tower here. Attacked straight up Eventru. I'm assuming the attack was on Kian.
We'll have to explore these opportunities when time is available. For now, the sun seems to be soon rising.
I instructed Virgil to pick up Jasper through the sewers. He'll probably have to take up some of the Nosferatu habits.
I'll make sure they get here safely. In the meantime, I do have a meal to attend to.
Of course.
Now, Cecil approaches, and he basically holds the back of your neck and gives you a kiss on the forehead and says, "Be a good lass. Get some rest." And he turns and begins walking towards the exit.
Serena raises an eyebrow at him because, the only person she has ever heard use the term lass is Kian. So she's like, I guess her Malkavian sixth sense probably tells her that there's probably some inside joke going on that she doesn't get. Do I get that?
The Malkavian network just goes, ay caramba.
Ay caramba. She's like, never would have thought that a Malkavian would be the butt of some Zemiza Hive Might inside joke. Huh. Well. And since she's probably gonna need to like sleep sooner than Cecil, she'll head to the bed, and like just like pat the moss that is eldest.
Mm-hmm.
Before getting it, she'll just be like, pat.
So as you begin to allow yourself to rest, roll perception awareness.
Mm-hmm. Does psychic apply?
No.
Does discerning apply?
No.
Fine. 1, 2, 3, 2 successes.
Okay. As you begin to drift off into your torpor for the day, you feel this sensation as if for the first time in forever you feel active energy in your body, as if you just a similar sensation to when you get a burst of adrenaline.
Yeah.
Your mind drifts off nevertheless, but your body responds to the motion. And the last thing you see before you lose consciousness is your hands slowly lift once more. And that's where we'll end tonight's session. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again next week in Beyond Armageddon. Bye-bye.